Hey, what's up everyone? Right now I'm doing the GR11 trail, which goes across the Spanish Pyrenees from the Mediterranean Sea to the Atlantic Ocean. Right now I've done about 1/3 of the total trail, and in this video I'll be answering some questions that I received on YouTube as well as Instagram about Thru-Hiking and the GR11 in particular, as well as tell you about my experiences from hiking so far. I apologize if I look at this too much because I wrote down everything that I wanted to say as well as all the questions that I got. So today is day 16 and it's my first fully rest day because I haven't taken a full rest day off up to this point. Right now we're in Andorra la Vella, which is the capital of the smallest, not the smallest, but one of the smallest European countries, Andorra. And yeah, it equates to about 1/3 of the total trail. The official trail doesn't go directly through the city, but I had to walk like 5 kilometers to get here. And I stayed here the night before, and I'll be staying another night here in a hotel. We chose this spot specifically just because my girlfriend will be stopping hiking with me today. So today she took a bus to Barcelona and she'll be flying back home just because she could get only 2 weeks off from her job. Unfortunately, not everyone can afford to walk for 45 days to do a full through hike. So yeah, the rest of the hike I'll be hiking completely solo. According to this fitness band, I've done about 380 kilometers, but according to the official guidebook, I've done only 270 kilometers, so about 70% of what this thing says. That's because this thing doesn't track from GPS, and yeah, I would say that I've done a bit more than 270 kilometers, maybe about 300 realistically, because I've done some detours off the official trail just to get to the city to resupply and so on, and maybe take like a small shortcut from along the road just because the trail looked in a very bad condition. So this guidebook is divided into 47 parts, 47 stages, and I'd say that I'm walking about 1 stage per day, so in total it should take me about 45 or 47 days to finish the hike, which should be in August, probably 10th August maybe, or something like that, I don't know. So let's start with the questions, and the first question that isn't really a question is keep us posted on the camping situation, said by Trippet76. So towards the beginning of the hike, the first 3 days, it was pretty hard to find good campsites. We slept right next to roads on private property. It's like not a official touristy like route. It's very hard to find good campsites there. But after the first 3 days, we started finding better campsites, and now when we're finally up to the higher Pyrenees, it's very, very easy to find good campsites. So the higher Pyrenees take up about 2/3 of the total hike, give or take. So it's pretty easy to find campsites on GR11 unless you're at the start or at the end of the trail, basically. Second question, what's your opinion about the shoes so far, said by Bublin. Sounds Polish. Maybe. Anyway, I've said in my gear preparation video that I wanted to go with the Salomon shoes, but I ended up with going these cheaper Decathlon shoes, which I bought for about 60 euros. They're the MT2 Evadict Decathlon shoes. So far they're performing pretty well. I'd say I'd give them maybe 7 out of 10 points. The main issue that I have with them is that the thread is already starting to come off, and I think towards the end of the hike it will become pretty slippery. I can start feeling that right now, that on gravel the thread isn't performing that nicely. But yeah, other than that, I haven't gotten any blisters. I'm using them together with the Silverlight socks, and I haven't gotten any blisters so far. Sorry for the wind, by the way. I hope you can hear me. Yeah, the shoe is starting to deteriorate a bit over here, as well as the other one on the inside, but that's because I walk in a weird way. I put my feet too close to each other and they occasionally rub against each other, and that's the reason why I get this thing. I have it on most of my shoes, by the way. It doesn't affect the performance of the shoe, at least so far. There aren't any holes, they're very breathable, no blisters, comfortable. The toe box is very wide. So yeah, I'll give a full review of them toward when I finish the hike, but so far I think I'll be able to finish them with these shoes, and yeah, 7 out of 10 points. Next question. What kind of shoes do you need in the Pyrenees? Low top, mid or hiking boots? Asked by Leo McKenna. I'd personally go with trail runners such as these ones, or hiking shoes, which are also very similar to these ones but look more like hiking shoes basically. You could go with mid-height hiking boots just if your ankles aren't fully flexible. I've trained for this hike. I've done like a lot of ankle stretching exercises and strengthening exercises, a lot of running in the hills, so I'm pretty confident that I won't sprain my ankle. But yeah, it's very, very rocky here. You can see there's like a landslide over here, and it's very common in the Pyrenees. So if you're worried about your ankles, you should probably go with mid-height hiking boots, but if you're very careful and you have trekking poles, I would just go with trail runners or hiking shoes. You don't need long hiking boots here unless you're hiking in winter. The next question is, do you need micro spikes or crampons? Asked by none other than Jack. Jack Daniels. No, just Jack. You don't need micro spikes or crampons here. I'm walking right now at the beginning of August, at the beginning of July, and you definitely don't need micro spikes. I haven't seen almost any snow. I went up to the highest points at about 2,800 meters, and I didn't see, like, the snow is non-existent there. You definitely don't need micro spikes. I also met a few hikers from Germany who started at the beginning of June, and they did bring micro spikes, but they said that they only used them once, and they said that probably next time they wouldn't be bringing them, just because they could have done it without them, because they also had trekking poles. So yeah, I hope that helps. Next question, what are the temperatures like at night in the higher parts? Asked by Prophet Sniper 1. Cool name. Yeah, so in the higher Pyrenees, I'd say that the temperatures won't go lower than maybe 5 degrees Celsius during the night, and that's the coldest that it gets, at least from what I've experienced so far. If you're lower in altitudes, then usually it will be about 15 to maybe 20 degrees in the night. But and in the day it will be 25 to 30 degrees. So yeah, you could probably go with a sleeping bag that's rated to 5 degrees Celsius comfort level. You don't need anything for below freezing temperatures. Also, if you're mindful about where you're camping and you're hiking in lower altitudes, then you could probably go with even a bit warmer sleeping bag and a sleeping pad as well. 6. Do you need any permits to set up the tent? Asked by Sinrumbo por el Mundo. So the regulations around wild camping in Spain are very, very vague, and theoretically in a lot of parts you can't stay in a tent, but realistically everybody does that. You just like in a lot of parts, mostly it's legal to stay above 2,000 meters, and you have to set it up after 8 p.m. and take it down before 8 a.m. So that's called biovac, or just staying for the night, which isn't called camping. like in legal terms or something. But yeah, I haven't had any problems so far. Nobody's disturbed me. I try to make my tent usually where it's non-visible from the trail at least, and not in private property. And yeah, you shouldn't have any problems so far. Also, I've seen a lot of other YouTubers doing the GR11, and yeah, everybody's just camping in their tents and they don't have any problems. But yeah, be careful, because you don't want to like set it up in a place where you're destroying the environment or something, because the fines for wild camping in Spain are actually pretty significant. They're like a few thousand, so just be nice to the environment when you're setting up your tent, and you should be fine. I can hear a chopper coming here. Yeah, there's like a hospital. It flew over the city a few times yesterday as well. Yeah, next question. How do you organize food? How much and where do you purchase it? Asked by Sin Rumbo por el Mundo. So I keep my food in this bag over here, and I usually resupply every 2 to 4 days usually. There are smaller cities along the way every second day probably, and they usually have small shops. And occasionally every week or so it goes through a larger city where you can get better food. But in those smaller cities you're usually only limited to pasta and lentils and some not that good food basically. But once you're in a good larger city, there's usually a shop where you can buy like oats, quinoa, maybe soy, olive oil, like good food. Sorry for the wind. I hope this answers your question. Next question. How many people are out on the GR11? Asked by K3, my ex-classmate actually. Yeah, so far I've met only a few people doing the GR11. Occasionally you do see a few people, but not in the direction which I'm doing, which is from the Mediterranean. I hope it doesn't start raining. Yeah, so fun fact, it actually did start raining. I had to take my camera down and go down that hill because the wind started picking up, and yeah. So right now I'm back at my 40 euro per night hotel, very luxurious. Behind the camera you can see a wall, which is like out of my balcony. Yeah. Anyway, where were we? How many people are out on the GR11? Asked by K3, which is my ex-classmate. I've met a few people so far. I met one guy from Belgium who was hiking the HRP, the High Route Pass, which goes across the top peaks of the Pyrenees. He was hiking in the same direction. We hiked for a bit. We met like 2 times. Then I met another guy from Spain who was hiking with his dog. He was doing the GR11, but I haven't met him since. And I've also met a few people who were traveling the other direction from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea. So not a lot of people, at least I haven't seen that many people. But there are a lot of people who are hiking a section of the GR11, or they're hiking just Pyrenees in general. So you can see a lot of people there, but not people hiking GR11. And next question by K3, what's your most valuable lesson so far? That's definitely to bring more food than expected, because one time we almost ran out of food, because in Spain you can't really rely on shops being open. You know, in other parts of the world, if there's a shop, it will be open, it will have some food. But here, first of all, in the smaller cities, the food shops are very small. They're very limited to what they're offering. Sometimes they're closed, sometimes they're not, sometimes they close earlier. You can't rely on them, so I'll definitely be packing food for like an extra day or 2. Next question, how does your body feel after the first section? And which was the hardest aspect of the trail so far? Asked by Mattia Mandelli. The first few days were definitely pretty rough. We were getting accustomed to starting to hike up in higher altitudes as well as hiking up in altitudes, because we come from Latvia, and Latvia is very flat and there aren't any mountains, so the first few days were pretty rough getting accustomed to that. We were doing 30 plus kilometers, and then we dropped down to doing 20-25 kilometers. But now we're getting used to that. Now it's getting very easy, and we aren't even feeling our backpacks anymore. We stopped feeling our packs. We felt them on our shoulders for the first 3 to 5 days, and then we kind of noticed that, hey, we're not feeling our packs anymore. Cool. So yeah, you get accustomed to that, and now it's very easy to start, very easy to continue, and I think I'll definitely be able to finish the GR11. And the last question, can you explain about the logistics of getting there? Asked by Yanis Counts. Yeah, so I flew to Barcelona for about 80 euros. Then I stayed overnight in Barcelona because we got there very late. Then on Sunday we took a train to Figueres for about 25 euros. On Sundays everything is closed and we needed to buy camping gas, so we stayed in Figueres another night. We bought camping gas in the morning, and then we went by bus to Cadaqués, which is the start at the Cap de Creus, which is it's very close to the Cap de Creus starting or ending point. And I'll be finishing in Irún, and from Irún there's a train that goes back to Barcelona, and from Barcelona back to Latvia I'll go with a plane. Very easy and not that expensive as well. So that was the last of the questions, and I wanted to talk a bit more about my own experiences that I've noticed so far. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is that I'll be making videos from this trip. I'll probably be making a few series from this trip, and they'll probably be released in August, I'm guessing, when I return home. So stay tuned for that. Next, I wanted to talk about how much I'm spending per day. On average, I'm spending about 10 euros per day on food as well as cafes. In cafes, which usually happen every second or every second day, I go to a cafe, I get like coffee and beer and charge up my electronics. So that's included, as well as all the food that I need for resupplying. 10 euros per day, not that much. You can live cheaper if you avoid cafes and you buy cheaper food, probably. I spent, for campsites, we slept 2 nights in campsites, one in Núria for 8 euros per night, and one in Camping Pyrenees near Puigcerda, which cost 15 euros per night. And this hotel costs 40 euros per night. I'm paying for 2 nights. Next, I wanted to talk about how we wash ourselves as well as our clothes on the trail. So every second or third day we find a stream that isn't like seen from which basically is pretty far off from the trail, which can be seen, and we wash ourselves there as well as our clothes. We did bring shampoo, ecological shampoo that can be used for washing your clothes as well. It doesn't harm the marine life. It's very good. That's how thru-hikers wash themselves as well as their clothes. Next thing is about internet. So I bought a SIM card from Vodafone, and I paid 25 euros per month for about 20 gigabytes of data. There isn't a lot of internet in the mountains, but you can like send something usually a few times every day, but sometimes you're without internet like for a day or two. That's just normal in the mountains. Next, I wanted to talk about the gear mistakes. So the first one that I had is my backpack. It's starting to break over here where I'm keeping my tripod. This thing is meant for carrying trekking poles on your side very easily, but my tripod weighs I think 1.2 kilograms or even more, and it did start breaking this, so I fixed it with a bit of duct tape. Next gear mistake was my tripod. I lost a screw from it. Don't know why. Next thing is trekking poles. I broke my black diamond trekking poles, which are pretty expensive. They got caught between rocks and I broke one of them. So yeah, I was left with only one trekking pole. But fortunately my girlfriend was hiking with me and she left today and she left me her trekking poles. They're a bit more heavier, but you know, they'll do the job just fine. Next one. Yeah, so I bought two hats. I bought this one, which is a hat for sun, and I bought a second one, which is basically a hat for winter, a North Face hat. I gave it to my girlfriend for her to take it home because I didn't use it once. In the higher mountains, I'm perfectly warm with just the cap, and if I put my hood on, I also have a down jacket. I'm perfectly warm with that. I don't need a second hat, so yeah, just one cap is enough. It isn't that cold in the Pyrenees, at least in the summer. Next one, I did bring a pack of garbage bags because I thought we'll be putting our garbage in them, but usually our garbage is very small, like small pieces of plastic which we can just put in a pocket of our backpack, so no need for garbage bags. Another mistake was I bought a sleeping bag as well as a sleeping pad meant for freezing temperatures. This sleeping pad is pretty large and it has an R value of 4.7, which is good for freezing temperatures, but here the lowest temperatures that I experienced are basically weren't below 5 degrees Celsius. So yeah, I bought an ass pad as well, a foam ass pad, just like a small piece for sitting. And if I'd be going again, I'd probably ditch the inflatable sleeping pad because you don't need it, and I just bring a full foam sleeping pad, probably a Thermarest with some insulated foam sleeping pad. The Thermarest, which has an R value of 2, I think, or 1.7 or something like that, it would be perfectly warm for the Pyrenees. It would weigh much less, and I could use it whenever I'd want to do some exercises out on the trail, or just sit or just rest in the grass. It would be much nicer. So next time I'll definitely do that. As well, I'd also bring a bit lighter sleeping bag as well, because mine is it has a comfort rating of -2, I think. You could use a sleeping bag that's meant for a comfort rating of +5 easily. Yeah, and the last gear mistake that I wanted to mention is sunglasses. You don't need to bring sunglasses. You're perfectly fine unless you're very irritated by the sun. So next time I probably won't be bringing my sunglasses. But you know, they look good, so who knows. Next thing that I wanted to talk about is navigating. The GR11 is pretty poorly waymarked at times, so you definitely need to use your phone. I personally downloaded a .gpx file from Wikiloc and uploaded it to Gaia GPS app on my phone, and I use that as my main source of navigation. But other than that, there's like very, very broad navigation in this guidebook. You can, it shows all the peaks, everything. You can theoretically just use this guidebook and the waymarking, but at times it can be pretty hard to follow that, so it's best to use your phone as well. Next thing, water points. I did bring a water filter and I have used it in the first 2 weeks just once. Basically there are these streams and fonts anywhere in Spain, in all the smaller cities and basically everywhere. You can get fresh water almost everywhere. There was just this one section where we ran out of water, but we could theoretically just find another stream that came straight from the mountain, or we could just walk a bit more that day until we finished at the city. But theoretically, it's good to have a water filter, but you could live without one. Next one. We both had to remove ticks from us. I had a tick over here and my girlfriend had it at her feet. So yeah, there are ticks in Pyrenees. I knew that there were ticks in Pyrenees, but from what I read, they weren't that common. But you know, we both had them, so definitely you need to bring tweezers as well. Speaking of animals, we saw some wild boar. We heard some wild boar. One night we were keeping our food in our tent at the start when we started hiking. And one night some wild boar came to our tent. We heard them sniffing around the tent, you know, barking or whatever, squeaking. And I started yelling at them and they didn't go away. I went outside, I used my flashlight and stuff, and they didn't go away. But eventually they did go away. And so I did some research on that and we started hanging our food, obviously. And since then, no wild animals basically came to our tent during the night. So when you're hiking in the Pyrenees and you're staying in lower altitudes where there are forests, definitely hang your food like 50 meters from your tent. And if you're using one of those dry sacks, it's very easily to hang them around a branch. So yeah, definitely do that. Next I wanted to talk about the weather. For instance, today I looked at the forecast and it showed that it will be very sunny the whole day. But yeah, as you saw, it just started raining out of nowhere, and then I checked the forecast. Yeah, it now shows that the whole evening it's going to rain. So you can't rely on the forecast here in the Pyrenees. It basically shows that it will rain every day, and it never does rain when it shows that it will rain. It only does rain, and there are some thunderstorms as well, only when the forecast shows that it basically won't rain. So you can't really predict anything, and you have to be careful if you're setting up a tent in open space and so on. What else? Yeah, I'll be making another Q&A when I return home in August. So if you want to ask some more questions, definitely do that down in the comments and I'll answer them when I finish the hike and I'm much more experienced and I know everything about the Pyrenees. Yeah, and lastly I wanted to say that if you're planning on walking the GR11 or the GR10, which goes basically the same route only on the border of France instead of Spain, or the High Route Pass, you definitely should do that. It's so beautiful here, especially the higher Pyrenees, the medium section. Yeah, it's definitely very beautiful. The mountains here are just amazing. It's so green, there's a lot of water, there's a lot of marmots, the scenery is amazing. The trail isn't actually that hard, it's just steep at times, so it isn't dangerous, at least from the first third. So yeah, definitely do that if you want to. And yeah, thank you thank you for watching this video. I hope it was useful and I'll see you next time. Bye.